Hello, hello. Oh, I should probably turn down this movie music. Just a bit. There we are. Welcome. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the 4th annual Frightful Fables. We have arrived once again on this most auspicious of nights to tell tales of terror and fright upon you lovely individuals. So get your blankets for safety, maybe a beverage, a crowbar, just in case, you never know. And sit back and join my three lovely individuals. Welcome in. Hazel, thank you. For the 36 months, 3 years. 3 years. Incredible. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Why are your sub alerts upside down? They're not upside down. Or maybe they are upside down. Is your perception of reality warping already? Then it's working. In any case, please join me and my 3 lovely guests as we go around the campfire. Lovely guests, welcome. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Oh.
Most of the time.
That's right. I needed to unmute you guys. Sorry. Say hello one more time.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, excellent.
Greetings and salutation.
So once again this year, we have the wonderful cafe, the lovely May, and for the first time, Envy.
Oh.
The ghost bring another victim.
Yes, yes.
I just realized you wore a very unique costume this year.
Nah.
Wonderful makeup. Immaculate.
Of course. We gotta get into the part.
That's right. We gotta bring the heat of the fire.
Mm-hmm. Let's channel all the things that are beyond. Wait. Ray can't hear. Why can't Ray hear?
Just speak quieter.
Speak quiet.
We must be quiet.
No.
Seen Scott Pilgrim. Sorry, I'll be quieter.
Yes.
Oh, Zayden is fine.
Going to whisper into my megaphone.
You guys should
Once the
be
round begins.
on par with me in terms of levels. I see it.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Envy, you're not helping.
Yeah, I typically don't.
Oh, wait. It's Ray. It's just Ray. Being Ray.
It's Ray. Hi, he's a problem. It's him.
Howdy, partner.
That's okay, Ray. All right, now that our volumes have been adjusted so that you can hear the horrible tales that are about to be told. Who would like to go first, except May, because I know she wants to go last. Do we have any
Wanna
volunteers?
Rock, paper, scissors, Ray.
Huh.
Huh?
Oh, Ray wants to go first.
Ray.
Ray chooses scissors.
Oh, well then I pick rock. I win!
Who could
Yeah.
have predicted this turn of events?
I feel like rock, paper, scissors doesn't work very well in text. I realize, I always forget that Spotify is lame and doesn't like it when we're in a voice chat and talking.
Spotify crazy.
So quick adjustment. No more Spotify. Now we go browser. Can't stop me now.
That does sound like something Spotify would do.
It really would.
So classic Spotify.
All right. How about as the host, I will begin
Sure.
the tales. After I actually turn down the music in my own ears because it is rather loud. Okay, I think that's okay. Level
The
adjustment.
horrors of dealing with audio levels.
I know. That's the
first
true horror.
story of this evening. You were already going first the entire time.
That's the twist.
The tale of the audio issues.
All right. The first tale that I shall be telling, is The Old Man in the Well. Something I know only a few people probably have experienced in their lives. Wells, that is. Maybe not so much old men in them, but... Our story begins with the young Keith. He was 12 when the old man in the well spoke to him. He was out after dark on his family's small farm near the well. That old well had support beams and a rope and pulley with a bucket attached, but Keith was told it had run dry well before he was born. Suddenly he heard someone say his name in a slow, raspy voice. Keith whirled around, but saw no one. A look of confusion spread across his face as he heard it again. Keith. This time it was more forced and a bit louder. The voice sounded like one of the old farmers who liked to smoke, though, thought Keith. Looking down the well, he heard the same voice asking, "You got anything tasty?" Keith couldn't see anything past the first 12 feet or so, even in the light of the full moon. "Who are you and how'd you get down there?" Keith asked. "If you give me something tasty, I'll reward you," replied the voice. All Keith had were some cookies that he had stuffed in his pockets before he went out to play. So he put those in the bucket and lowered it down. Lowered it nearly 40 feet. It was literally at the end of his rope, when he no longer felt the weight of the bucket. Several seconds had passed, and he felt the weight return. And he pulled it back up. As he finished pulling the bucket to the top, he heard the voice say, "No nice." Keith saw a reflection in the bucket. It was a shiny, rectangular piece of silver metal, about the size of an army dog tag. It was completely flat and smooth. "Want fresh," the voice said. Even though Keith tried to talk to the old man, again, there was no response. So he made up a story about where he found the metal and took it to his father, who took it to town to confirm it was an ounce of pure silver. After that, Keith kept it a secret. It took a while to discover that the old man was only there on the night of the full moon. He quickly learned that only live things he put in the well would be rewarded. But only once for each item, and once every full moon. So, one of each kind of animal was lowered down the well he could find, and each was rewarded in turn. Keith now had a cigar box, mostly full of silver pieces by the time he was 16, but he had run out of small animals to get rewarded for. It was around this time that the local farmhand went missing. It was also the same time that Keith was rewarded with gold pieces for the first time. Once Keith took over the farm, temp workers seemed to vanish every now and again without explanation. And the old man had finally found something tasty enough to always reward. The end.
I don't want to live in
Yay. That's horrifying.
Never going near a well again.
Especially if it
Like-
starts yelling your name.
I've never had much of a reason to go near a well, and now I have even less reasons to go near a well.
Excellent.
I do say that, but like, if a well was like maybe, I don't know, with like $90 a month, I'll do it. I'll live in a well with a haunted ghost creature. It's fine.
You would sacrifice to the well for money.
I would sacrifice my money. $90 a month.
All right, fair enough.
That's my hard cut for a proven haunted experience.
All right. Cafe, Envy. Either of you like to go next?
I'll take you.
All right.
I'll take you next.
Works for me.
Alright. I'm gonna throw powder at the fire. Wolf. Alright, this one's called My Mother's Colleague by Tara A. Devlin. This happened a while ago. I'm from a family of 5 and all of us are pretty sickly. We all regularly visit the hospital and I have it the worst. My digestive system is rather weak and food comes out undigested, so I have to visit the internal medicine department. And I also have terrible insomnia, and it's only when I'm riding a bike that I'm overcome with a terrible urge to fall asleep. So I've often found myself on the verge of danger. So for a while, I visited the psychomatic medicine department as well. And one day, while I was wondering why our whole family was just so sickly, my mother came home from work with a strange look on her face. She didn't even say, "I'm home." She didn't say hello. The first thing she said was, "I'm going to have an exorcism." Apparently, one of my mother's colleagues had been looking at her for months strangely, like she wanted to say something to her but never did. And one day, when my mom noticed, she asked what was wrong. "Hey, son," the colleague began, "is your entire family ill at the moment? It's not just you, but I can see this haze over your entire family. Your mother's quite elderly, yes, and she has a rash, and our pet bird has also died, I see. And your husband has a bad back. You yourself also have a bad back, and pain all the way up. And your youngest, she seems to suffer from terribly bad menstrual pain. And I think, yes, your eldest daughter has it the worst, but your father, who passed away 9 years ago, he appears to be looking after her now. This is all because of the state of your house, so I would recommend you perform an exorcism. You really should get a priest from the shrine. If you don't like this sort of weird supernatural stuff, then at least pour salt on the floor in the corners of your house, although that's also some weird supernatural thing, huh? I'm sorry." Her colleague looked awfully sad as she said that. "I hope I'm wrong, though. Nobody in my family believes in anything like that, but hearing what she said gave me chills. This colleague had no way of knowing anything about our family, and my mother had never told anyone at work that she was ill either. Yet she got every single thing correct, right down to the makeup of our family, to our pets, and where everybody was hurting. My grandfather died years earlier, and the month before my colleague spoke to the mother, my grandparents' bird had died. Previously, my grandmother was told that she needed surgery for her eyes, but for some reason, when she showed up for the consultation the following week, her eyes had made a complete recovery. And in return, the bird's eyes have actually turned cloudy, which was a strange coincidence. And that bird was most attached to my grandma, so a priest from the shrine that colleague recommended came and cleansed the entire house, and shortly after that, our family actually miraculously recovered, like we'd never even been sick to begin with. I was able to eat and sleep well, too. It was around that time that my grandfather's portrait actually started to turn white. I remember feeling like he had finally gone somewhere far away. I'm sorry this was all so long, but on that note, do you think that maybe we should get rid of his portrait now? The end.
Ooh.
And Grandpa didn't love his family as much as his wife. Good old Gamp thinks they should splash that around.
Camp, no.
Gamp, please. Gamp, I don't want back problems. Not the bird, Gamp. It's probably because I called him Gamp.
All those years. He's finally fed up with it.
I'm not Gamp, I'm your damn grandfather. Boom, back problems.
What a revenge to have.
Right. Post-death, protect wife for every single other person ever.
No longer that story that went on the last. I was like, they're just like me for real, for real.
They're just like me / haunted grandpa.
All right. Envy, are you ready?
I am ready.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
go.
So, for my first story, the title is I Am Being Hunted by a Clown Doll by Lupa Being a Wolf. The two scariest things I can think of, clowns and dolls.
Oh boy.
And apologies in advance. I'm getting over being sick, so if my voice cracks, I'm sorry.
It's a part of the ambiance.
It's the ghosts.
Right?
Ghosts are attacking us.
I'm being hunted by a clown doll. I settled into my new job as a babysitter, eager to earn some extra cash. The Johnsons had a beautiful home, filled with vibrant colors and playful decor. But it was a large clown doll in the corner of the living room that caught my attention. Standing nearly 4 feet tall, it wore a garish costume of bright red, blue, and yellow, and its painted smile sent a shiver down my spine. "Isn't he adorable?" Miss Johnson said, noticing my lingering gaze. "That's Chuckles. He's been in the family for generations." I forced a smile, though my stomach churned. There was something about the doll that felt off, almost sinister. After the parents left for their night out, I settled on the couch with the 2 kids, hoping to distract myself from Chuckles. We watched cartoons, laughter filling the air, but as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that Chuckles was watching me. "Can we play hide and seek?" one of the kids asked, their eyes sparkling with excitement. "Sure, you can count and I'll hide," I replied, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. As the children counted, I ducked into a nearby closet, squeezing into the cramped space. The air was dark and musty, and I felt a wave of discomfort wash over me. The muffled sounds of their giggles faded, replaced by the thumping of my heart. Suddenly, I heard a noise from the living room, a faint rustling sound. Had Chuckles moved? Pushing the thought aside, I focused on the game. But when the kids found me, they looked pale. "Samantha, the clown, he's not in the corner anymore," one of them whispered, eyes wide with fear. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I asked, emerging from the closet. "Where is he?" "I don't know," the other child replied, trembling. "He was just standing there. And now he's gone." Panic surged in my chest. "Stay here," I instructed, trying to sound calm. I peered into the living room, scanning the shadows for any sign of Chuckles. The air felt heavy, oppressive. Just then, I heard a creaking sound from behind me. I spun around, my breath hitching. Chuckles was standing in the doorway, his painted grin more sinister than before. For a moment, it felt like his eyes were locked into mine, piercing and unblinking. "Guys," I yelled, retreating slowly, "get behind me." The children scrambled to my side, their faces etched with fear. But before I could react, the doll moved, lumbering forward as if it were alive. My instincts kicked in. I grabbed a nearby lamp, ready to defend the kids. "Stay back," I shouted, raising the lamp like a weapon. But Chuckles didn't stop. He took another step closer, his smile grotesque, stretching wider. In that moment, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. My heart raced as I swung the lamp, missing as the doll lunged forward. I could feel cold, plastic fingers grasping at me, and I cried out, shoving the lamp into the doll's chest. It toppled backward with a thud, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. "Run," I screamed at the kids, pushing them towards the door. They bolted past me, but as I turned to follow, I felt a grip on my ankle. Looking down, I saw Chuckles pulling himself back up, the painted smile now twisted into something monstrous. Panic surged through me as I kicked free and sprinted after the children. We reached the front door, and I fumbled with the lock, praying it would turn. Behind me, I could hear the soft padding of the doll's movements, relentless and chilling. Finally, the door clicked open, and we tumbled out into the night. "Call the police," I yelled, pulling out my phone. But as I turned to look back, I realized Chuckles was no longer there. The night felt still, almost too quiet. When the police arrived, they searched the house but found no sign of the doll. It was as if Chuckles had vanished in the thin air. The Johnsons returned, confused by the chaos, and I explained what had happened. "That doll's been a part of our family for years," Miss Johnson said, a frown creasing her brow. "It can't move on its own." But I knew better. As I left the house, glanced back at the living room window. There, behind the curtains, I swear I could see the outline of Chuckles, watching, waiting. The laughter of children echoed in my mind, mingling with the sinister grin of the clown. My pulse quickened as I got into my car, thoughts racing. What if I hadn't been able to protect the kids? The weight of the encounter pressed down on me, a suffocating dread that refused to let go. Driving home, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. I glanced in the rearview mirror more than once, half expecting to see Chuckles grinning back. His painted smile a chilling reminder of what had happened. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the image of the clown doll haunted me. I tried to tell myself it was just a toy, nothing more than a relic of childhood. But the way it moved, the way it looked at me, no, it felt too real. Sleep eluded me, the shadows in my room twisting into grotesque shapes. Just as I began to drift off, a soft creaking noise pulled me back into consciousness. My heart raced. I held my breath, listening intently. Then I heard it. A faint giggle, followed by the unmistakable sound of shuffling. My blood ran cold. I crept to the door, heart pounding in my chest, and peeked out into the hallway. It was dark, but I swear I could see a shape at the end, just beyond the light. My pulse quickened as I took a step forward, then froze. The unmistakable outline of Chuckles stood there, backlit by the dim light of the street lamp outside. He was just standing there, watching. I stumbled back, scrambling for my phone to call for help. But before I could dial, the lights flickered out and went out completely, plunging me in the darkness. The giggles grew louder, echoing through the empty house. With a surge of adrenaline, I ran for the front door, desperately fumbling for the lock. But as I turned the handle, I felt a cold hand grasp my shoulder. I screamed, spinning around to face the thing I'd feared all night. Chuckles stood there, closer than ever, his painted grin now twisted into a horrifying sneer. The laughter of the children morphed into something menacing. I realized with dawning horror that I was not just being watched. I was being hunted. As I finally broke free and burst outside into the night, I knew I hadn't escaped the terror of Chuckles. The laughter still echoed in my ears, a haunting reminder that some toys are not meant to be played with, and some nightmares never truly end. The end.
That was good. That was very good.
Yeah, how about no?
I was about to say, I have about like 4 new nightmares from one story.
Just
Impromptu garage sale.
Oh
I
God.
don't think it'd be enough. I
Severed
feel like it'd
dolls.
just keep coming back.
Right. If you ever
Turn in your resignation, sis. It ain't worth it.
You need the Winchesters for this one. You need salt. You need fire.
yeah, it's gonna be so
Last
salty in there
exorcism.
that it might as well be a broth.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that chilling tale.
It was.
I hate
Oh.
clowns. I hate dolls.
Me
I
too. We're
love
spirit
this-
clowns.
I loved your story. I never want to hear it again.
That was good.
Exactly. You did it too well. Too well.
We haunted by the clowns.
Uh,
All right. I think I'm up.
you ready?
You sure?
I
are?
believe so. With a
All right.
horrifying story of parenthood, of all things. The true horror.
Really?
This story is called A Third Grader Told My Daughter She Was Going to Hell by Forgotten Well. When I got the call, I couldn't believe it. My daughter? Involved in a fight? My daughter Maisie. Maisie wouldn't hurt a fly. When we find a bug in our apartment, she makes me take it outside instead of squashing it. The principal didn't say much over the phone, but he mentioned that after an argument, the other girl told my daughter she was, quote unquote, going to hell. I said I'd come and get Maisie, hung up, and threw my phone in the couch. This was all my fault. I was brought up in a strict conservative Catholic household, and for reasons I'm sure you can imagine, I'm no longer religious. I decided early in Maisie's life that I wasn't going to baptize her or take her to church in any capacity. I didn't anticipate a grade schooler trying to convert my daughter. I pulled into the school parking lot and took a deep breath. If that other girl and her mom were here, I was going to give them a piece of my mind. The principal was very unhelpful. Maisie stared at her feet while he lectured us both. Rather than focus on the fight, he insisted that Maisie's lack of a male role model was the real culprit. He wanted to know if I had any plans to remarry. I had to bite my tongue to keep from cussing him out. When Maisie and I got to the parking lot, I saw a young girl in tears with her mother. She had "first trip to the principal's office" written all over her face. Maisie, wait in the car for Mommy. Mom. No buts. We'll talk after I speak with your friend. I didn't want her to see this next part. I walked over and politely said, "Excuse me." I was going to tear into her, but the girl's mother started apologizing profusely. "I'm so sorry," she said. "This was all my fault." Oh, here it comes. My daughter is worried about our souls. Disturbed. Huh? She's heard voices ever since she started the 3rd grade. They say the most awful things to her. I think your daughter interrupted one of her episodes. I'm so sorry. I've tried getting her a therapist, but I can't get her an appointment until January. Parenting and the American health system in one story.
Damn.
She kept rambling on the verge of tears with her daughter behind her hanging onto her leg. All I could say was, "It's water under the bridge." Like that would make things any better. I completely misread the situation. I thought some religious girl was trying to convert my daughter at recess. Turns out my daughter was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I apologized to them and walked back to my car. I shut the door and looked in the rearview mirror. "Well," I said, "do you have anything to say, Maisie?" "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" Maisie spoke, not out loud, but directly into my mind. Her voice was gargled and sinister. "Sorry I said those awful things to her."
Ugh.
We need
That
a
sent
super
shivers down my spine.
We need a super therapist.
Kids these days, possessed.
Kids these days out here getting possessed.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, I just got possessed by a Pac-Man fever. Now
Back my
kids
day
got-
when I.
Yeah, kids are scary enough as they are. I don't need them speaking directly into my brain. Thank you.
I'm too busy trying to stop myself from speaking directly in my brain. Thanks. That's what the music's for, honey.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I
Thank
love
you,
that
May.
the emote fell right in the fire.
I fumbled my mic so bad after that pull quote.
You did good.
Come here so I can whisper your ear and then fumble the mic.
You're good. I don't think anybody could tell.
Oh yeah, that sounded good.
Push to talk is my best friend.
Mhm.
Push to talk loves you.
As much as the ghosts.
That's true.
Thanks, Aiden. I'm now haunted. Thanks.
You're welcome. You know, that's what happens when you come around the fire.
It's a spooky fire. Don't you see? It's green. It's not
Mhm.
normal. That's a spooky fire.
You know, there's something that's even closer than maybe the ghost that haunts you, but your reflection.
Mhm.
Which leads into my next story. Now that we've come around. Aptly named The Mirror Entity by Paranoid Letters. And Hex, yes, thank you for joining us for as long as you did. Hopefully you have some things to think about as you drift off to sleep. But nobody believed me when I told them my reflection in the mirror was alive. Grow up, dude. You're not 5 years old, you're 24. This is what most of them said while laughing as a response to my story. Admittedly, it does sound like something a typical 5-year-old would have as a fear. But I swear to God, it's true. I couldn't remember since when my reflection came to life, but it wasn't always like this. It was recently. I was sure of it. And it wasn't a ghost. Although, your reflection being alive and doing weird things definitely looks like the act of a ghost. I wasn't. Assuredly. It felt more like a creature who lived behind the mirror. Or maybe was trapped there. I couldn't tell how. But I tell you, my reflection was constantly trying to grab me. As if it was going to pull me inside. While jumping out. But I wasn't going to let it happen. Not ever. And ever since I realized my reflection was alive and constantly trying to grab me, I always did my best and kept my distance away from reflective surfaces. Like when I brushed my teeth every night, for example, I always stood a few meters away from the mirror, so it wouldn't be able to grab me. Because of this, the entity was constantly showing a grumpy and angry face every time I saw it. When it was just the two of us in the room. No matter how much I tried to smile or change how I looked, it never did. Never. It was always angry. One day, I took off from my apartment for some sightseeing at a local mall nearby, when suddenly an earthquake struck. It was a big one. Everyone was hysterical and running around the place looking for shelter. I ran for cover myself under a table to avoid getting hit, but I was too late. I didn't realize something had fallen on me from above until I was shakily getting up and groaning in pain. As the pain faded, I looked around. The earthquake had stopped. The mall was slightly dark. It looked like the lights had gone out. The place was an absolute mess. And then I gasped when I noticed something shiny not too far from me. I turned my head and that's when I saw it. A mirror. It had probably fallen from a fitting room that was nearby. Reflexively, I scrambled as far away as I could, even though My head and legs were both in searing pain. That's when I saw it. My reflection in the mirror. For the first time in forever, it was smiling. A devilish smile. A sense of horror grasped me as I saw the entity waving at me from behind, as if to say goodbye. Forever. The end.
I actually have a fear of mirror stuff, so that was real good.
Yeah.
When it's late at night, I don't look into that thing.
The Deep Fears Rooted Inside Me by Kamen Rider Ryuki. You know?
Brings me back to my like schoolhood days when like the kids would be like, oh, just go in the bathroom and say Bloody Mary 3 times and she'll come and get you.
Oh, classic.
I always hated when people brought that up and were like, let's go do it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Don't fuck with that, actually. Do not.
It's like, I'm not saying she real. I'm saying I ain't gonna be the guy to play with it.
I'm gonna be outside the room when you do this.
ain't gonna be Mr. Find out she real.
Yeah, mirror tales are always kind of fascinating.
It is. Mirrors are interesting in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the first time people found a mirror, it's like that was probably like magic and strange.
Oh, 100%.
Heck, it's still strange. With the way perception works, people see all kinds of different things in the mirror sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And you never know when it might start moving on its own.
I don't want it to do this. Excuse me, I bought an immovable mirror. Not the mirror from hell.
That sounds like a note from me. I don't need to upgrade, actually.
I call Hobby Lobby and say, I wanted the mirror without the dead in it. There's a Kritora in my mirror. All right, let's see. Is it my turn? It's my turn, right?
I believe so.
All right. All right, so a good Halloween tale. Nice one. This one's called The Dead Are Coming Back to Life and Nobody Knows Why. I worked as a gravedigger for 20 years before the dead started to come back to life. I was used to burying the dead, but I wasn't sure what the protocol was for digging them up back. So I called the police. So, when the police first arrived on the scene, I wasn't sure how to explain it to them that someone who is alive shouldn't be... Someone who's alive and shouldn't be is crying out from 6 foot below. One of the baffled police officers knelt and stuck his ear to the dirt. How long they been buried, he asked. 20 years, I stuttered. I pointed to the date on the gravestone. The police officer's face turned pale. How's that even possible, he asked. I wasn't sure how to answer, so I quickly got to work digging that coffin back up. As I pried the coffin open, the police officer stared in disbelief as the decomposed corpse was moving around in the coffin, seemingly alive. Reports of the dead coming back to life started to flood the news. Nobody was sure at first why it was happening or why it was only a small handful from cemeteries around the country. The young boy was only buried 2 weeks ago. He was only 10 and had died under mysterious circumstances. I remember feeling sad when digging a small hole for his coffin. It was the same sadness I'd felt when I had to dig the grave for my beloved wife, who sadly passed away a few months earlier. It was a call the police had strangely gotten used to. They stood at the foot of the grave as I pried the coffin open. Inside was a deathly pale young boy crying to be left out. I picked up his still cold body and handed him to the police. Some of the younger officers started to cry when the boy called out for his mother. Don't worry, little man, your father's on his way, explained the police officer. But the boy became physically distraught at the mention of his father. No, not my dad, please, mister. He's the reason everything went dark. The boy wrapped his arms tightly around the police officer's neck and As his father rushed into the graveyard, he was still angry at me for getting in trouble at school, so he put a pillow over my face, whispered the young boy into the officer's ear. As the police arrested the young boy's father, I suddenly realized why only a small handful of the dead were coming back to life. It seemed to be the ones who took a secret to their grave. When the police officers left the graveyard, I couldn't help but rush to my own wife's grave. I could hear her screaming to be left out as soon as I dug up her coffin. Once I got that coffin out of that hole, I began to dig the hole even deeper. At 12 feet, nobody would be able to hear her cry out from her grave, making sure she takes the secret of her death with her to the very end. The end.
Damn.
Oof.
That took a
His wife
twist.
yeah. His wife had a recipe for fried chicken none of us got. And he
How
was
dare.
real mad about that. Oh, man, I really liked that one. I was like that. Oh, okay. Turns out he was the not so nice man.
Short and sweet.
Oh, yes.
Got the point
Understandable,
across.
right?
Mm.
Who would take such a wonderful, delicious recipe to the grave like that?
Who indeed?
Must
Rude.
have been absolutely rude. Do not deprive the living of good food. We need that to stay smiling down here.
If only it
So
was
I
just
thought-
food.
Also, I noticed I accidentally poured so much of my Midwestern accent into that. Straight up Midwest man.
No, it was fine.
I was like, yeehaw, let's go.
If anything, I think it made it even better.
Oh, thank you.
I could see that happening in the Midwest.
Yeah, it's a Midwestern problem.
Mhm.
Midwestern malls usually look like malls from zombie movies.
Midwestern everything. That's haunted. That's haunted. That is absolutely haunted.
Oh yeah.
The Midwest is like a mix between a haunted movie and like Fight Club. It's like those
Dear
are the
Lord.
two sides of the Midwest. Oh, and Garfield. I like
Just-
Garfield though.
You sprinkle in a bit of Garfield, yeah.
It's how we stay smiling.
It's how you get through.
Get through the Fight Club and the zombie movie is the
All right, Envy. You got a second
Okay.
story for us?
I sure do.
heck yeah.
This story is called Count Your Windows Twice Every Night. I didn't. And is by, excuse the name, Emma Watson, but dumber.
Nice.
Wonderful.
What a mood, sis. What a mood.
Absolutely.
Okay. It started with an innocent enough warning from the old man next door. He was a reclusive figure, always dressed in faded flannel and worn out boots, with a gray stubble that covered most of his face like a second layer of skin. Nobody in the neighborhood ever spoke to him much, but when he saw me locking my door one evening, he shuffled over with a strange urgency in his eyes. You live alone? Sorry. You live alone now, don't ya? His voice was raspy, like he hadn't spoken to another human in days. Yeah, I replied, a bit uneasy, but polite. Why? He leaned in close, his breath hot with the scent of whiskey. You better count your windows twice every night before bed, he said, eyes narrowing. Make sure they're all closed, all locked. If you don't, well, let's just say it ain't good. I chuckled awkwardly, unsure if he was joking or just drunk. Sure, I'll do that. The old man's expression didn't change. I'm serious, kid. Count them twice, or they'll come in. I watched as he shuffled back to his house, a creeping unease settling in my gut. They'll come in? What did that even mean? But I shook it off as the rambling of a lonely, old man with a little to too much time and liquor on his hands. That night, as I wandered around my house before bed, I found myself thinking about this strange warning. I stood in front of the first window in my bedroom and closed it tightly. Then one in the kitchen, and after a second of hesitation, I moved through the house, checking each window carefully, just as he had suggested. One in the bathroom, two in the living room, each of them shut and locked. When I reached the last one in the hallway, I counted again in my head. 5 windows, all sealed. It felt ridiculous, but I did it anyway, twice, just like he said. Nothing happened that night, of course, but over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I noticed subtle things. Drafts, even through the windows, were closed, strange sounds at night, and most unsettling, a growing sense of being watched. The next week, I came home late from work, exhausted, and forgot about the old man's warning. I went straight to bed, my body too heavy with fatigue to bother checking the windows. I didn't even think about it until the middle of the night when I woke up to a soft tapping sound. Tap. At first, I thought it was rain, but the night was dry. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. My heart began to race as I sat up in bed, listening. It was coming from the hallway window, the last one I'd always check. I hesitated, fear gripping me, but curiosity pulled me out of bed. As I approached the hallway, the tapping stopped abruptly, leaving behind this eerie silence. My pulse pounded in my ears. The window was closed, of course it was, but as I reached for the lock, I saw it. A handprint on the glass. Not mine. Something else. Something that shouldn't be there. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The handprint was too large, too distorted. It pressed against the glass from the outside, as though something had been watching me. Frantic, I ran through the house, checking every window, counting them twice, just like the old man had warned. But the windows were all closed, all locked. Yet, the feeling that something was wrong persisted, stronger than ever. The next night, I made sure to check the windows before bed, counting each one meticulously. 5 windows, twice. Then I slept. But the tapping came again, this time louder, faster. It wasn't just one window either. It was all of them. A frantic, rhythmic tapping from every room surrounding me. I leapt out of bed, my body trembling with fear. The windows, they were all shut, yet the tapping wouldn't stop. I backed into the center of the living room, cold sweat trickling down my spine. And that's when I saw it. The shadow moving just outside the glass. A figure, tall and lanky, with impossibly long limbs and a face that seemed to shift and warp under the dim moonlight. It pressed against the window, its grotesque face turning slowly toward me. Eyes, if you could call them that, met mine, hollow and hungry. The tapping stopped, but the window began to creak. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in fear, but eventually the figure melted back into the darkness, leaving me shaken and breathless. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I rushed to the old man's house, desperate for answers. But when I knocked, there was no response. The neighbor told me he passed away 3 days ago, right around the time the tapping started. Now I count my windows every night. I don't forget anymore, because I know they're still out there, waiting. If I slip up again, they'll come in. The end.
Good use of the taps. I like
Tap.
that.
Mm-hmm.
The immersion.
Need to contact my landlord to have this window removed from my bedroom.
Why do I need windows? I don't
Just
need the
remove
outside.
all of them.
Take them out.
I
Right.
think if I move into any location and some like old dude comes up to me to like spew lore about how it's haunted, I'm like moving out immediately. I'm
Yeah, you
not-
listen to him. You listen to him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I ain't taking that risk.
The last house my parents moved into, the lady that lived in there before told me about how somebody died in the back. I was like, well, shit, of course. Of course.
Well, damn.
I
Now I
won't.
gotta move again.
Damn it. I didn't move. Did have nightmares, but I didn't move. Because I'm poor.
Oh. Do be hard.
Broke as fuck.
Listen, the ghost may be scary, but that monthly rent is immaculate.
They get free rent. That's the true terror. Like pay up.
Pay up, dude.
Mhm.
You live here. I know you got ghost jobs.
All right, May.
Speaking of taps, I've got thumps. We got taps and we got
We got-
thumps this
we got-
evening.
We
Ooh.
got the
Thump,
teas.
thump, thumps. This next one's The Visitor's Heartbeat by Pierre Milton. Pierre Milton. I can't read. It's gonna make this very troublesome very quick. Pierre Milton.
You're doing great.
In a small
Mhm, mhm.
town, it was said that every Halloween, a silent visitor knocked with a specific rhythm. Thump, 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 thump. No one knew why, but the rule was simple: never open the door. One Halloween night, a deaf woman stayed home while her family went to the festival. She didn't want to socialize, and she was content relaxing on her couch. Big mood. The porch light was off, signaling no trick-or-treaters. She was wrapped in a blanket, scrolling on her phone, when suddenly she felt a faint vibration beneath her feet. Boom, 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 boom. Her heartbeat quickened. As someone deaf her whole life, she was highly attuned to feeling vibrations. It wasn't just in her mind. Something was there. She swiped over to the doorbell app on her phone. Just kids trick-or-treating outside on the sidewalk, nobody at the door. Probably just the furnace starting up, she thought, even though the room had already felt colder still. That thought vanished as soon as the vibrations came back, this time stronger. Her floor shook, and she could see the door rattling with each to the same rhythm. Boom, 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 boom. Her heart raced, the cold air creeping into the room. She glanced at the window, and in the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow pass by. She scampered over, quickly pulling the curtain aside, but there was nothing there. But the pounding continued to reverberate. She tiptoed nervously from window to the front door as the pounding grew heavier and heavier. She placed her hand on the door, confirming the physical power she was feeling on the other side of it. Trembling, she tapped on her phone again, checking the camera. Just to be sure, the camera was showing nothing out of the ordinary. Just kids across the street, passing by trick-or-treating. Yet the door was still banging, as if nobody outside noticed it, passing right on by. Her heart raced harder than it ever had in her life as the door continued. Thump, 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 thump. Something was out there, but against all warnings to never open the door, she couldn't take it anymore. In a split second of pure fear and anxiety, she quickly flung the door open. Just as suddenly, the knocking stopped. No one was there. Just the same kid she saw on the doorbell camera across the street trick-or-treating, startled by the door abruptly swinging open. She stepped backwards inside, shaking. Suddenly, she realized her heartbeat wasn't hers anymore. Thump, 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 thump. The visitor's heartbeat had found its way inside her because she'd opened the door and let it in. Now the visitor's heartbeat would stay until next Halloween, when it would go on to find its next victim.
In her body.
Double bolt those doors.
I love it. It's like a legend come to life.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really intrusive. Like, we don't know what comes with it. We just know there's a heartbeat in their chest now that's different. Very
No
intrusive.
thanks.
Yeah.
The heartbeat's like, hello, welcome to your 30s. I'm high blood pressure. Happy Halloween!
Hope you enjoyed those hamburgers, son. I did. That's the secret.
I love hamburgers.
Me too.
Don't ruin this for me.
Hamburgers love us. They'd never do that to us. We're
Never.
special.
I would literally do anything for a hamburger right now.
Absolutely. Hamburger gang.
A delicious hamburger and fries. Oh,
They
I
do
want to
love
be
us.
young.
The true horror story is cardiovascular issues.
Oh God. Don't show me the calories. I don't want to know.
I don't have to look at them. Says, I don't care if I go blind. I don't have to see the price tag anyway.
Oh, that's another. No, we're not gonna get into it.
Whew.
The price of food.
Oh, I don't want to look at the price tag.
Mm-mm.
It's time for me to hunt on my own. I'm just going to pounce on quails. I'll be the next horror story. The golem of the Midwest.
I can't wait to hear about you.
Oh, this is horrifying. Me sweating. Saving a lot of money
Alright.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you do it? Stocks, internet.
Being a horror icon.
Being a horror icon. Being basically a Mothman. Being a chupacabra.
3 times round the fire we go.
There you go. How we feeling?
Spooky.
Sufficiently spooked.
Hell yeah.
I'm horrified of Creatora, of Devala, of clowns,
Alright.
dolls, and windows and mirrors.
I was about to
don't
say,
you
I think
worry.
my fear of glass has increased exponentially from this one.
Well, we got a few more in the tank. This next one's about the same length, but I do have another semi-long one. So if we're good to keep going, I'll do the shorter one, and then we'll end on that long one that I've got
Sounds good.
for my final story.
Throwing some dust into the fire.
Yes. My third story, then. The Eyes Are Watching Me by Reclutus. A fear that I know many may share, being watched. So I bought a new house in a small town in Winthrop. The house was cheap, but the most important part was that I just needed to get away from the city. A few months ago, I had a run-in with a stalker. And while I'd managed to get him arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes constantly watching me. I felt like they were everywhere. At home, on the street. I just had to move. So to the country I went. Somewhere with fewer people. Just for peace of mind. The house itself was big and somewhat old, but otherwise very welcoming. The agent who introduced me to it had been required to mention that a serial killer had lived there in the past, which is why the house was so cheap. However, he and later my next door neighbor, Sarah, both told me to pay that no mind. 4 other owners had lived there, and they were all very happy with it. I love the house. Its interior furnishings were beautiful. It was very comfortable. The people of Winthrop were friendly, often bringing over freshly baked pastries or inviting me over for dinner. Get-togethers, they said, were the key to making sure everyone who lived there loved it. Yet after a week, I stopped loving it. The feeling of someone watching had returned, but far worse than ever. I tried to ignore it, but soon I started losing sleep. As giant bags grew under my eyes, I began yawning almost as much as I breathed. Sarah was kind enough to let me stay in her house for a few nights. It was during this time that I heard the legend of Forrest Carter, the serial killer who had previously lived in my house. While no one knows his exact kill count, Carter, also known as the Winthrop Peacock, was a man with an extremely severe case of narcissism. Legend says that he couldn't fall asleep if he didn't feel like he was being watched. He finally was arrested for putting up a scarecrow to watch him during the night. Only it wasn't a normal scarecrow. Carter had murdered a 17-year-old girl just so her corpse could stare at him. This story gave me the shivers, and I went home. But I felt like there were hundreds of eyes watching no matter where I turned. Today, however, was the first time that I had acted out. I was cooking breakfast when I felt the eyes, and instinctively out of fear, I threw my kitchen knife, which had lodged itself into the wall. As I pulled it out, I found myself staring into a pair of eyes, pickling in formaldehyde. I've been watching the police peel away the drywall of my house for hours now, and so far, the count has been 142 pairs of eyes in little glass jars. The scariest thing? Every one was staring at me. Right? This one definitely gave me the heebie-jeebies when I read it for the first time. I was just like,
y'all be pulling at my internal fears.
It's just like being in college all over again. Oh, public speaking. Oh,
y'all find it. Y'all somehow hit the cafe horror gotcha.
Nice.
Oh, let's see. All right, everybody ready for my next dastardly tale?
Hell yeah.
Alrighty.
We are watching with bated breath.
Only a little nervous. Only a little bit. Because you're not in formaldehyde. That's where the real horror is. Alrighty. Well, speaking of real horror, this is a story called The Doctor Told Me I'm Not the Father of the Child My Wife is Carrying, by K.G. Lewis. Have a seat, Mr. Bradley. Dr. Robertson gestured at the chair in front of his desk. He waited for me to sit down before continuing. I have the results of the anemocesis you requested concerning the paternity of the child your wife is carrying. He placed his hand on the manila folder that was lying on his desk. Before I show it to you, I'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind. What about? I asked, suddenly feeling defensive. I've done thousands of these tests. He tapped his folder with his fingers. And usually I can guess what the results are going to be based on the conversations I've had with my parents that I help. I waited quietly for him to get to his point. That wasn't the case here. He once again tapped the folder. My question to you is, what made you think the child wasn't yours? This is gonna sound crazy, I repeated, but I swear it's the truth. I raised my hand like I was taking an oath at a Boy Scouts conference. It's because of a dream my wife had. Hearing the words come out of my mouth made him sound like I was even crazier than I imagined. What kind of dream? Dr. Robertson asked. I guess it's more of a reoccurring nightmare, really, I said. Tell me about it, he prompted. It started about a week or so before Mia found out she was pregnant, I explained. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, screaming and clutching at her stomach. When I asked her what was wrong, all she said was they did something to my baby. I asked her who they were, but she couldn't describe them to me. How long do these dreams last? Dr. Robinson asked. Every night until she took the pregnancy test, I answered. So about 7 or 8, maybe 9. Did she seek any kind of treatment for these dreams? She went to a psychologist who told her the dreams were just a manifestation of her fears about becoming a mother. How long were you trying to conceive before your wife became pregnant? 6 months, at least. Before he could ask another question, I cut him off and asked one of my own. What does all of this have to do with the results? I gestured at the folder that was still under his hand. I'm just trying to make sense of everything. He pushed the folder across the desk to me. I opened it so I could read the report. See for yourself. He gestured at the single sheet of paper inside. I knew it, I hissed, when I saw the results that said I wasn't the genetic match for the child. I'm not the father. The doctor reached over and said, that's not the part that concerns me. Dr. Robinson said, this is. He tapped a line near the bottom of the sheet that said, my wife wasn't the biological mother of my child. The end.
Oh,
You are not the mother.
what a twist.
What a twist.
Hear that every day.
It's true. I always get that joke from Phineas and Ferb where he's like, neither of my parents showed up to my birth. And there was just a nurse looking confused holding the baby.
Oh, God.
But yeah, that would be a horrifying thing to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Without knowing, you somehow became one of those, what do you call them? Carrier? I forget the term. Where somebody's like a third-party carrier for a baby child.
Surrogate?
Surrogate, thank you.
Yeah.
Big brains, Aiden. That hat's for a reason. To hold the brain.
It hides it all.
I have big hair, but all that's inside of it is hair. Yeah, I really like that story because I was like, ooh, that's a good hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good final spooky.
Very unexpected.
Whose baby is it?
Alien. Alien or Ghostlium. It's
Maybe
basically
both.
Don to Don. It's like, who did it? Which one of y'all, the aliens or the ghost? If the baby comes out ghost, it's ghost. A ghost baby would be so easy to deliver.
Would it, though?
Might just pass that through. It's just like, whoof, I'm out.
You've never seen something possessed, huh?
I can't say I have. No,
I
absolutely.
was gonna say.
You know, now that I think about it, maybe the baby just be in the womb acting like the girl from Exorcist crawling all over the place in there.
Oh, God.
Gosh, I can't wait for Envy's next story.
I'm gonna get my tubes tied.
I'm
Hold
doing
on,
it
quick,
right now.
I'm gonna tie these real
Sorry, I'm
quick like
booking my
shoes.
appointment.
I'm gonna tie these like shoelaces real quick. Hold up.
Anyway.
What have you got for us, Envy?
My story I have here, equally terrifying and on theme, children. My worst 911 call by Langster Gangster. I've been a 911 dispatcher for about 3 years now. I don't know how my life eventually led me to work in this field, but somehow it happened. As you can probably imagine, it's not the best job to have. The pay is not good at all, and is definitely not worth the emotional roller coaster that comes with it. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I've had due to what I heard on the other line. Most of my calls aren't too bad. Mostly minor domestic disputes and armed robbery reports, but on rare occasion, I would get a disturbing call, describing murder scene or something along those lines. The calls with kids were also some of the worst, but one call sticks out, and it happened only a few weeks ago. I live in a decently small town, so crime is not the biggest issue. But I guess that is why I never get a phone call about a grisly murder crime. It hits worse emotionally. All calls get to me, but not as much as the serious ones do. I'm not saying only some are serious and some aren't, but you get the point. A few nights ago, I got a call about 11:30 p.m. I don't usually work overnight, but one of my coworkers was out sick, so I volunteered for a double shift, as my boss would pay me overtime if I did so. I'm just sitting at my desk, daydreaming about whatever, when I get the call. I brace myself and answer. This is what was said. Me, 911, where's your caller? God, please help me, please stop her. I was caught completely off guard by the caller screaming into the phone and immediately put on edge. The caller was a man, and as I could tell by the deepness in the voice, I already knew this was not routine, and I immediately tried to calm him down so I could find out where he was and send police, fire, EMTs to his location. Me. Sir, calm down. I need you to tell me where you are. Caller. 612 Yorker Street. Please send somebody. I have an intruder and she is trying to kill me. Yorker Street was near the edge of town, so it would take police at least 10 minutes to get there. I had to get enough information out of the caller to inform the traveling officers about what they would be dealing with if things escalated. Me. Police are on their way. Are you hurt? Caller. No, but she wants to hurt me. She is destroying everything in the house, and she is screaming her fucking head off. Through the phone, I could now hear the muffled screams of a girl. It was now apparent that the intruder was inside the house. Me. Is there anyone else in the house besides yourself and the intruder? Caller. No, I was alone before she broke in. Me. Okay. I need you to listen to me carefully. Lock yourself inside a room and hide. Stay on the line with me. Caller. I'm already locked inside the bedroom and hiding under the bed. Me. Okay, good. Tell me what happened. Caller. I don't know. I woke up and I heard things rattling in the living room. I got up and investigated, and there was a girl standing there, fiddling with one of the cabinets. I tried to quietly return to my room and call for help, but as soon as I had moved, she noticed me. Once she saw me, she screamed so fucking loud and charged at me. I sprinted back to my room and slammed the door shut. I then locked it. Me. Is she still in your room? Caller. No, I don't think so. We both then heard a loud bang, and the man gives out a fearful cry. Caller. Oh God, she's now pounding on the door. Through the door, I could hear rhythmic thumps on wood. Now I knew the situation was becoming dire. Most intruders, if caught by the house occupants, will usually try and flee. This intruder had not left after being seen. She was now trying to kill. Please tell the police to hurry. I think she's about to break down the door. Me. They're on their way. They will be there soon. I prayed they would be. Me. Can you describe the girl for me? Caller. Yeah, I can try to. Already, I was panicking for the caller. I couldn't have imagined how frightening the whole situation would be. The description the caller then gave me was bone-chilling. Caller. She looks like a child. She's not an adult. That I know for sure. She looked to be at least 7 or 8 years old. She's wearing a small skirt, and there was dark spots on it. Her hair was dark, about shoulder length or so. Her neck was messed up. Her head was just hanging from her neck. But her eyes, oh God, her eyes were missing. There was no light. The sockets looked empty. I was becoming more and more terrified the more he described her. This was no longer your typical burglar. No little girl breaks into homes in the middle of the night with intent to kill. This little girl didn't even sound human. Not by how the caller was describing her. 5 minutes had passed, and I prayed the police would get there soon. The man was crying at this point, as he was growing more and more panicked with every passing second. Me. Do you know why this girl could have broken into your home? Caller. I don't know. And then he stopped for a few seconds before continuing. Caller. She stopped banging on the door. I listened, and there was nothing. No noise, other than the caller's panicked breaths. Me. Okay. Stay very quiet for me. Stay where you are. Caller. Okay. Me. It sounds like she's leaving your house. Please tell me. Caller. Well, now that you mentioned it, this isn't my house. Me. Wait, excuse me? Caller. This... He didn't even get to finish what he was going to say. As soon as he spoke, I heard a massive crash and the man yelled. I heard the ear-splitting screams of the man and the intruder. Then the line went dead. I sat at my desk, frozen and silent for a few good minutes. I then broke down. And one of my fellow dispatchers who had heard the conversation while sitting at his desk immediately came over and comforted me. I told him what had just happened, and his face went white as snow. He was horrified. He must be thankful, however, that he didn't have to hear it firsthand. The police arrived a very short time later. I wanted to find out what the hell was going on as soon as I could. Thankfully, I have a friend of mine on the force who told me what she and the other officers had discovered. This is what she told me when I talked to her the next day. The house had no forcible entry, no windows were broken, and the front and back door were locked and secure. She and other officers on scene were dumbfounded, as they couldn't figure out how the intruder got in. This either meant that the intruder was willingly let into the home, which the caller did not tell me, or the intruder was already in the house when the caller returned to a house that wasn't even his, which at the time seemed to be the most likely. Nevertheless, the cops were eventually able to pry open the window and get inside to check on the caller. The house was a mess. Everything from picture frames to glasses to even the refrigerator were wrecked. It was as if a demolition crew had a field day inside the house. The bedroom door was blown off its hinges, the door was in pieces, and there were wooden shards everywhere. If the cops weren't already creeped out at this point, they were just beginning to be. My friend told me that a linebacker couldn't have caused that much damage to the door in one blow, let alone a little girl. She was already on edge, but it got much, much worse when they eventually found the caller. The man was found in the bedroom connected to the... the man was found in the bathroom connected to the bedroom he was hiding in. It was gruesome. His blood was everywhere, most of it flowing from a gaping hole in his abdominal region. Some of it, however, was on the walls of the bedroom and the ceiling. His eyes were also missing. My friend said a couple of police officers passed out or vomited from sheer shock after looking at the grisly atrocity that happened to the man. I was already horrified about what I had heard. The man had died a very violent death, and this intruder was still out there. My friend then told me something that made this case more bone-chilling than it already was. While looking around the house, one of the officers found an out-of-place wall near the kitchen. The wall looked to be artificial. It was connected to another wall, but it was only about 4 feet high and seemed to serve no purpose. It almost looked like a barrier to the kitchen, though there was an opening right next to it. The officer knocked on it lightly. Not only was it hollow, but when the officer knocked, a small hole opened up. He knocked on it very lightly, but the wall was so weak that it was enough to force actually penetrate it. He shined a flashlight inside and saw a blanket on the ground. But what caught his attention wasn't the blanket itself. Rather, it was the lump underneath it. He called the other officers to come over to him ASAP, and they broke through the rest of the wall. They inspected the blanket, and one of the officers lightly brushed the blanket off the lump. What they found was almost as disturbing as the dead caller. It was the dead body of a young girl. They immediately closed off the area, and crime scene technicians came in and investigated. After some time, the coroner came and took the 2 bodies to the morgue. A few days later, the rest of the details came out about the case. I was eager to hear what the coroner and police had discovered, and my friend called to tell me the rest of the story as soon as she found out. The caller had died from, and this was the exact term my friend used, blood loss from being gutted. His eyes were never found. The girl was identified as Taylor Watherton, a 9-year-old girl who went missing a little over 2 years ago. She went missing from a local playground, and she was last seen wearing a polka dot covered skirt. I didn't think much of it until I found the missing persons poster with her picture on it. She was a cute, petite girl with black hair that ran just to her shoulders. As I was looking at her photo, I couldn't stop thinking about that skirt she was last seen in. I felt like I was missing something. And then it hit me. I almost fainted as I remembered what the caller told me. Caller. She was wearing a small skirt, and there were dark spots on it. Her hair was dark, and about shoulder length or so. Apparently, the coroner determined that she had been dead for not long at all. According to him, she appeared to be dead no longer than a month. While the cause of death could not be determined exactly, her neck was broken, and it wasn't post-mortem. When I told my friend what I originally talked to her about, the caller had said that the house wasn't his. She did some digging and reported back to me at the same time the rest of the details were released. The house belonged to a man named Travis Quinsley, who had recently been reported missing. He had apparently told his family he was going on a trip to Canada, as he had a few friends who lived up there and they were going to have a guy week. However, he didn't return when he was supposed to. During this time, his family would rotate house sitting. His brother, Colby, was the caller. I knew what he had looked like. His photo had shown on the news a couple times since his body was identified alongside the missing child. He was a young man, straight, strawberry blonde, and a decent build. After talking to my friend, I looked up a picture of what Travis looked like if he was missing. I wanted to at least have an image of his face I could put to the back of my mind. My heart dropped when I looked at a picture of him together with his brother on one of his social media accounts. It was captioned, "Back with a twin." He looked exactly like Colby. The end.
Home invasions.
My worst
Ooh.
nightmare, truly.
Yeah.
Oh god, that was a good one. That was a very good one.
It's very creepy.
It is. It's the like the callers, that's another thing, is like being a caller on the phone with somebody.
Yeah, being
Ugh.
helpless, not able to do anything. When there's
Yeah.
an evil ghost trying to kill you because they think that you are the twin.
Yeah, they think that you're, and there's being on the other end of the phone while that's happening is unexplainable.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if I'm not a dispatch caller or anything like that, but I will say I don't know if they have any training about ghosts.
I don't think so.
Probably not. I think at that point they just have to wing it, you know?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to go off script.
It's too many external variables. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be too hard to train for.
What do we get? Ugh.
These
Vengeful
stories
Ghost.
are also spooky, but everybody reads them so nicely. I'm like getting bed story vibes. Like, I'm gonna go curl up next to this fire and go to sleep.
I'll take a
Actually,
nap.
yeah.
I said that.
I'm gonna take a nap right here.
I was saying that to Mamie right before the stream. I was like, everybody here's got really nice voices. We're going to be just a nice voice time.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be mean and say, except me, but I'm going to be nice to me, friend. It's fine. It's going to be like, I'm Danny DeVito coded.
My next story is about AI, which is fun.
Ooh.
Oh, a recent horror.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would have to be.
Mhm.
Honestly, I'm still taken by the fact that people now have like cameras in their doorbells and stuff. It just breaks my mind. I have no such high tech and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess those are kind of becoming more and more normal these days. This one's about a smart home. My husband, daughter, and I toured a smart home today. Ooh. The home also comes with a virtual assistant, the realtor announced as we stepped into the foyer, that is accessible from every room in the house. Any room? My husband Charles asked. Any room, the realtor confirmed. See that light? She pointed to the dome light that was affixed to the ceiling. It's more than just a light. It's also a speaker that lets you talk to the virtual assistant. There's one like it in every room in the house, including the bathrooms. Oh no. Here, I'll show you how it works. The realtor looked up at the ceiling and said, Hey Oracle, what time is it? The time is 11:38 a.m., a feminine voice replied from the light. Hey Oracle, she continued, please turn on the kitchen light. Through a doorway, we saw a light come on. That's pretty cool, don't you think? Charles asked our teenage daughter, Avery. I guess, Avery replied, sounding unimpressed. If you think that's cool, the realtor smiled. Watch this. Hey, Oracle, please start the dryer. There are no clothes in the dryer, Oracle replied. Do you still want me to start it? No, thank you, the realtor said. She can also answer any questions you might have, she explained. Would you like to give it a try? She was addressing me. I shook my head. I don't think that will be necessary. What about either of you? She gestured at Charles and Avery. Charles shook his head. I'll give it a try. Avery smirked. Okay, the realtor said. All you have to do is say, Hey, Oracle, and then ask your question. Hey, Oracle, Avery was still smirking. Why did the previous owners of the house move out? The previous owners have not moved out, Oracle revealed. In fact, if you look at the top of the stairs, you can see Mr. and Mrs. Whitlow looking down at you. Shocked by Oracle's answer, the four of us looked up at the top of the stairs, but we didn't see anyone standing there. The end.
Ugh.
Ah. Yes. Let me just go unplug my Alexa. Hold on.
1 second, Alexa.
They're just like animals, those AI. They can smell it in the air.
I got my Google muted right next to me. I'm like, good, good. Stay muted. Don't listen. There's a ghost in this house. Don't tell me.
Yeah, specifically tell it. I don't want to know.
I don't
need
want
to
to know. Block that knowledge out of your brain, Google.
Google would know, though.
They ain't know nothing. I'm the ghost haunting my home.
Thank you, May. For that
Thank you,
technological terror.
That's a good one.
story of my life, really. Technological terror.
It do be getting spookier by the day. Truly.
That's why it's time for me to punch my Google.
Remind it who's on top still.
I have big hands. I'm built like a gorilla. Same, Suki.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are we ready for our final round
Yeah.
of stories?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right. For my final story, it is simply called Bella. I was in grade 9 when I got her. I remember, it was the last period of the school day, and I was sitting at my desk in science class, bumping elbows with my lab partner. Mr. Oscarberg was droning on the way only he could. It was like he had some mystical powers unknown to the science he was teaching us that could command time to move slower. When out of nowhere, I see my mom's face pop into the tiny window in the door. Now, if you know my mom, this isn't particularly surprising. She used to enact a parent-mandated jailbreak from time to time, but that day was different, because under her chin, she had the tiniest little black puppy. Without a second thought, I was up and out of my chair, much to the dismay of my less than pleasant science teacher, Mr. Oscarberg, who demanded I sit back down. My mom's here to pick me up, I said, cutting him off, and I ran to the door, where the smell of puppy breath and those soft little beans-shaped puppy toes waited for me. She slept on my lap on the way home, and after a couple nights away from the farm we got her, she settled right into our lives. She was different. I didn't lie when I wrote her eyes were too human to belong to a dog. They really were too human to be a pair of dog eyes nestled in amongst that black fur. I also didn't lie when I said she was a black lab shaped like a pierogi. She was shaped like a pierogi, but she wasn't always this way. She used to be slim and fast. So fast. My God, as soon as she could run, she was quick as a whip. And she'd follow me around with one of my soccer balls in her mouth, trying to get me to play. She was great that way. She never wanted to do dog things, but there was something wrong with her in that way, because she never wanted to do normal dog things. She sat like a human, with her hind legs kicked out. She launched herself onto the couch and watched TV. I couldn't throw a ball for her because she wouldn't fetch it, but she'd make me dribble the soccer ball about as she tried to knock it away from me. And when she finally did wrestle it away, she looked at me, the whites of her eyes showing, the ball clamped tight between her jaw, with a string of thick, viscous dog drool always clinging to the underside of her jowls from the exertion of playing. She'd even tell me when to go to bed. She'd waddle her way over to the edge of the hall and that led to my room and throw herself onto the ground with a grunt. I just told you how hard her day has been, just by the sound of it. Brogy's real name was Bella, and she was my favorite dog, but even I knew there was something not quite right with her. She'd already begun to gain weight by the time my cousin Christian came to stay with us. She was no longer fast and agile, but she had been reduced to a little stunted bunny hops that Christian took to her almost as much as I did. Honestly, I was a little jealous because they were thick as thieves. And Pierogi, or rather Bella, began to share her time between the two of us when we were both home. I understand, though. Despite the love that she had for me, Christian did one thing I wouldn't. He would share whatever he was eating with her. It was cute at first. He was young and goofy, and he'd get down on her level, on his hands and knees, and give her a piece of chicken or pizza, and say so lovingly to her before kissing her on the forehead. One bite for me, one bite for you. It was weird, of course, but cute. He'd never had a dog before, and watching him adopt all those weird mannerisms that dog owners have just so naturally was funny. But as Christian stayed with us longer and longer, it felt less and less cute, and more uncomfortable is the closest word I can muster. Bella used to put me to bed, falling on the floor with her large, cumbersome, pierogi-shaped body, and moaning and grunting until I gave in and went to sleep. With Christian, it was the opposite. I'd come home from work, sinking into the house, trying my best not to make a sound. As I turned the corner to use the washroom, I saw Bella, half laying, half sitting, propped up by her short, stubby front legs, her barrel chest barely off the ground, staring into the black of Christian's room. Not moving, just staring into the dark, the whites of her eyes showing, unblinking, and I swear I could see the steam of her breath in the cool night air. I was about to call her quietly and take her outside when I heard movement from inside Christian's room. Slowly from the darkness, he came out into the hallway, rubbing his barely open eyes, as Bella looked up at him, with those eyes that were far too human to belong to a dog. I slunk into the bathroom, as I heard him pad past me down the hallway. Behind him, the distinct clicking and clacking of Bella's nails in the hardwood followed. That was the first time I saw him, seemingly sleepwalking to the kitchen, opening the fridge and gorging himself on whatever food he could find, all the while taking one bite for him, getting down on all fours, giving one bite to Bella. Watching someone sleepwalking is always weird. They act just enough like themselves to not immediately be alarming, but then, like a dream, they do things which are just slightly too odd to be natural. I shrugged it off. I didn't want to give it much thought. I didn't even think I mentioned it to him the next day. But then a week later, I woke up to the sound of Bella's nails clicking and clacking on the hardwood floor, followed by the rustling of packaging and clumsily handed rummaging in the fridge. I got out of bed and came to the kitchen where Christian was, again, down on all fours feeding Bella, a raw chicken cutlet hanging from his mouth, as Bella daintily took nibble after nibble, as if she were an old emperor of Rome being fed grapes. And when she was done with her meal, Christian stood, Bella's two human eyes following him unblinkingly as he muttered the words, "One bite for you, one bite for me." I woke Christian up at the time, which I know you're not supposed to do, but I'd just watch him hold a raw chicken cutlet in his mouth. As he came to, he fought me for a moment before settling, clearly dazed, as I urged him to brush his teeth and rinse out his mouth. All the while, Bella moaned and groaned with dismay as I disrupted her midnight snack routine with her new best friend. Bella stayed away from me mostly after that. She had a way of holding grudges, although on her many quirks, which were not normal for a dog to have. Oh, another one of her many quirks. Instead, she stayed by Christian's side, staring up at him, waiting for him to feed her. Always staring with those eyes, the whites of those eyes always showing, and her tongue always dripping with saliva in anticipation for the next meal. Why Christian came to stay with us is entirely private, but I can say that when he begged my mom to send him home, tears in his eyes, the pleading of his homesickness wasn't enough to overcome the personal situation that had sent him to live with us. And I didn't sleep much after that night, as I was always waiting to hear the clicking and clacking of Bella's nails, the sound of the fridge being pulled apart. But it stopped for a while, a long while, and Christian settled back in, and I didn't hear him speak those words to Bella anymore at dinner time. 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you. I nearly put it behind me. I started to sleep more soundly. I was no longer anticipating the next time I'd have to rush to wash the raw, prickled chicken skin from his mouth. Until it happened again. 2:34 a.m. I remember picking up my phone, rubbing the sleep from my eyes and seeing the blurry numbers. I could hear the rain of kibble falling again, the hard wood like rain. And I sprung from bed clumsily to run and stop whatever chaos was happening in the kitchen. I sighed, frustrated, angry, and fed up with Christian. But as I turned the corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. Bella sat there, staring, unblinking with those eyes that I cannot stress enough were too human to belong to a dog. Just staring at Christian, who was down on all fours, but this time, his eyes were wide open as well, staring back at Bella. Bloodshot, tears streaming down his cheeks. 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you. His voice sounded parched and strained, as if he'd been screaming. As if someone blew air up his windpipe from deep inside him and played his vocal cords like a clarinet made of cartilage and skin. 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you, he repeated before lowering his face into the mountain of kibble poured on the floor. Bella just sat there, panting, her peeled back lips resembling a smile on her face. With his mouth full and half chewing, I could hear the kibble grinding and popping and exploding on his molars. 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you. I just stood there in shock. Not sure if I was terrified or mortified as I looked at what Bella was telling Christian to eat, and eat more. The same way she used to tell me to go to bed. The same way she seemed to have some way of telling Christian to rise from the dead of sleep out of bed to feed her at night. 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you, he said once again, with the same strained, hoarse, painful tone as he clamored then for the dog bowl of water to the side, pieces of kibble bobbing on its surface, swollen and bloated from the water. Christian drank and drank, half sucking the water up to quench his thirst, half lapping the water away a dog would. Meanwhile, Bella just sat there, on her haunches, staring at Christian, choking on water and kibble, as he said, 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you. I couldn't take it. I picked Christian up off the floor, yelling at him to stop, thinking maybe I'd wake him from this dream, but he was wide awake. And as I dragged him close to pulling him to my chest, he looked at me, eyes glassy, crying, his body shaking, and said so quietly that only Bella and I could hear him, 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you, before sinking his teeth into the skin of my neck. I threw him back, grabbing at the side of my neck where he had just tried to bite me. I felt the hot, wet slick of blood. I looked at Bella in disbelief and horror as I found her staring straight back at me. And in my head, a voice so close to mine, but not mine, I heard the words, 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you. The end.
That was good. That was very
shit.
good.
I've been saying dogs were evil for years, man. Nobody believes me. Not a single one.
I'm more of a cat person myself.
I'll have
My
to bring a
dog's
cat
evil,
story
but
next
I
time.
accept it. Need to bring evil cat story in.
We gotta balance the scales, you know?
All right, absolutely. I know my dog's evil, but she do be cute. That's like That one ending from Silent Hill also has a dog. So dogs are silent. So, you know, dogs, even if they're evil, they're adorable. You know.
It depends.
That's
It
true.
depends.
So if you're adorable, it's okay to be evil.
Yes, absolutely.
Ah, yes.
100% forgiveness. These are the strats.
An immutable fact.
Immutable fact.
If you're
If
kawaii, you can be kawaii, you know?
Yeah. If evil, why cute? That's the. My dog might, you know, be Doctor Doom, but it's also just like this hairy little Dotson creature. All right, everybody,
All right.
ready for the next story?
Yeah.
Also, I gotta say, whenever you got to that neck bite thing, I was like, I audibly went, "Oh!"
Me too, I gasped. I gasped
Yeah.
scandalously, like,
Me too.
That was good. All right, I had to say that. I had to get that out. All right, ready for my next story. All right. This one is called. I almost muted my mic by instinct. Okay, by mic I mean the fire, obviously, my megaphone. You know. Okay, this one's called "Just to Say Goodbye." On the first day, about half a dozen were discovered around the world. Perfectly sculpted human faces sticking out of cliffs and rock exposures. It didn't make more than the local news at the start, really. An anonymous group of artists were rumored to be behind it. Some sort of political statement or so, but none of us really understood it or really gave it any thought. But on the second day, they found several hundred more. Some appeared as high up as 20,000 feet. Found by veteran climbers on an expedition. One climber later explained that he touched one of the faces with his bare hands and that it felt warm, like a person. On the third and fourth day, the faces numbered in the thousands. News crews were running back and forth between their new clusters, and experts all around the globe were baffled by the seemingly inexplicable nature of them. On the fifth day, a young woman from St. Petersburg, Russia, became the first documented case of what we now know as visage-induced compulsive disorder, or VICD. She later told reporters that she booked a flight to Switzerland to the same night after having spotted her missing sister's face on the base of Matterhorn. On the sixth day, the world's airports were overrun by hundreds of thousands of people suffering from VICD, desperately seeking a way to get their faces. Mayhem and chaos erupted worldwide, and nations are placed under martial law. 7 world leaders are assassinated, all over a few faces. On day 7, the famous interview of Katrina Alexius was aired, within hours becoming the most viewed news clip of all time. The CNN reporter Gina Marconi found Miss Alexius on her knees by the cluster of faces appearing in Devil's Lake State Park, Wisconsin. "Ma'am," Marconi asked, "can you tell us why you are here?" Miss Alexius points to the child's face in the rough rock formation. "Because of her," she says. "Because of my daughter." "And how did you find her?" Marconi inquires. Miss Alexis looks down into the camera. Tears are streaming down her face. "I just knew." "How did you know?" Miss Alexia sniffs, turning her gaze back to her face. "Because she is with the others, and they are all one voice now. And they are all saying the same thing. And what's that? Goodbye." Day 8 brought enlightenment. A connection is made between all the identified faces. They were all young, all pure and innocent. the meekest among us, the kind, the gentle, the unspoken, and they all disappeared from their homes without a trace, some many years ago, some the same day. Day 9 was the day of revelation, the day scientists discovered that our Earth was actually dying. Massive sudden collapse of ecosystems. We knew then that it was all over. It was just a matter of time. Day 10, the faces disappeared, all from the rock faces, leaving them just as they were, leaving us alone, soon to be extinct. We will never know what really happened, where they really went, who they went with, where did our ecosystems fail. All we know is they came back to us for a very brief moment just to say goodbye. The end.
Ooh.
Rock-type Pokemon real.
I feel like rock types would be quite terrifying.
It would be. Like, if you make Pokemon real, if a big rock talking to you, it'd be a little bit... It'd be the one. And also, every ghost video, people would just go, that's a ghost Pokemon, bro. Ghost videos have become even more, like, not scary. You just go, that's just a fucking Gengar, brother.
Until you remember most of the lore behind ghost Pokemon are actually quite terrifying.
That's absolutely true.
Don't know how Nintendo keeps getting away with it.
It's true. I like the lore that a lot of, like, Pokédex entries were made by a guy who just kind of made it up on the spot. That's very funny. He's like,
Is it
that
really?
thing. Oh, yeah. There's, like, this theory that you're kind of trying to disprove half of it. Because a guy inside of... This is becoming a Pokemon bonfire stream. So basically, a guy inside of Legends just kind of makes stuff up on the spot about a lot of Pokemon. And they're like, oh, that's misinformation. That's silly.
I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know. I've never seen any Pokemon until now. When a child in the rock face tell me goodbye.
Thank you for the story.
Thank you for the stories.
Envy?
Let's go.
All right. My story, last story for the night. I have another 911. It's called The Peekaboo Killer.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Dispatcher. 911. What's the nature of your emergency? Caller. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's an emergency, but could you please send someone? Dispatcher. Do you need police, or is this a medical emergency? Caller. Could you please send an officer out? I mean, I don't know. It might just be some kids messing around or something, but... The caller went quiet for a few seconds. Dispatcher. Hello? Caller. I'd feel better if someone came out to check. Dispatcher. What is your address? Caller. 1056 redacted. Dispatcher. And what is your name? Caller. It's Aaron Feller. Dispatcher. Okay, Aaron. I have officers on the way. What's going on? Aaron Feller. Well, I was calling my dog in from the backyard, and she was growling at something out there. I couldn't see what, though. I finally got her to come inside, and the second I closed the door and locked it, something smacked into the glass window. Not hard enough to break it, but it was hard enough to rattle the door. Dispatcher. What time was this? Aaron. About 5 minutes ago. Dispatcher. Were you able to see anyone? Aaron. No, there's blinds on my back door and they were down, but I heard the doorknob jiggling a few times before I called you. Caller tries to quiet her dog, which can be heard growling. Aaron. I yelled that I was calling the police and the noise stopped, but... Like I said, it could be some kids, but I don't know. Dispatcher. Okay. And have you heard any noises since then? Aaron, no, just the door, but my dog's still growling. Dispatcher, okay, I have an officer en route to you. Aaron, are the doors and windows locked? Aaron, yes, they're locked. Dispatcher, all right, an officer should be out to you shortly. Stay inside and keep the doors locked until the officer arrives, okay? Aaron, okay, thank you. Dispatcher, you're welcome. Call ended. Officer Collier was dispatched to the location. He saw no signs of any persons around the property. He did note that the dog was still anxious and growling at the back door. He advised Miss Feller to keep her doors locked and call if she should hear or see anything else. Another 911 call came in at 1:27 a.m. Dispatcher, 911, what's your emergency? Aaron, it's me again. Can you send the officer back out, please? The caller is in obvious distress and breathing rapidly. Dispatcher, is this for 1056 redacted? Aaron, yes, someone was just looking in through my front window. Can you please send someone? Dispatcher, I have an officer en route to you. You said you saw someone looking through your window? Aaron, yes, I was in bed, but Ginger, my dog, ran to the front door growling. I pulled up the blinds a bit, but I didn't see anything at first. Then I saw a face pop up, but just the top of their head and eyes, like they were playing peekaboo or something. I screamed and Ginger started barking and going nuts, and the person popped down out of view again. Breathing is erratic. Dispatcher, how long ago was this? Aaron, a few minutes ago. They popped up again just before I called you, but they went back down under the window. I'm in my bedroom now. Dispatcher, did you recognize the person, ma'am? Aaron, no, I only saw their eyes and the top of their head, but they looked, I don't know, like a mime or something. Dispatcher, a mime? Aaron, yes, white makeup on their face and head, unintelligible, really disturbing. Dispatcher, okay, I want you to stay on the phone with me until the officer arrives. Just stay in your room until you hear them. Aaron, okay. Dispatcher, does your bedroom door have a lock? Aaron, yes, it's locked. Dispatcher stayed on the line with Miss Feller until officers arrived. Officers arrived and announced themselves 11 minutes later, and the call was terminated. Officers Copeland and Laurie arrived on the scene to find Aaron Feller in great distress. Miss Feller claimed to have seen a mime at her door. Officers noted that Miss Feller did not seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Miss Feller seemed anxious, but lucid. Miss Feller pointed out to the officers where she'd seen the suspect peering through her window. The glass had no visible marks on it other than a smear of white paint. Officers were able to see two impressions in the dirt just underneath the windowsill outside the laundry room. Officers stated the impressions looked as if someone had been standing barefoot on the tips of their toes. The officers checked the area and the fields surrounding the home and found the trail of footprints leading away from the home to the woods behind Miss Feller's home. When followed, the footprints seemed to be erratic and moving around in a zigzag pattern. The prints stopped abruptly at a large tree, but there were no signs of any persons in the tree. The footprints looked to be made by someone who was barefoot and walking solely on their toes. Officers checked the woods, but found nothing of note. Officers spoke with the closest neighbors, a half-mile down the road. The neighbors stated they hadn't heard or seen anything out of the ordinary. Officers reminded Miss Feller to keep her doors locked and advised her to call back if the person or persons returned. Another 911 call came in at 3:41. Dispatcher, 911, what's your Aaron Feller, I need the police now. The sound of her dog can be heard barking in the background. Dispatcher, is this for 1056 redacted? Aaron, yes, I just saw that person looking in my bedroom window. I was asleep and I heard tapping on my window, and when I looked up, that face was pressed against the glass. How long before the police get here? The caller can be heard breathing rapidly and sounds as if she's moving around the house. Dispatcher. I have officers en route to you now, Miss Feller. Can you lock yourself in your bedroom? Aaron. No, it was still tapping on the glass when I left. It keeps smiling at me. I'm upstairs in my office. It has a lock. The caller tried to calm her dog. Okay, Aaron. Aaron. It was smiling at me, and it was like mouthing words or something, but I don't know what. They didn't have eyelids, the caller whimpered. Dispatcher. Okay, Aaron. Just stay calm. Officers are not far from you. Aaron. I don't understand why... The caller goes quiet, and the sound of her dog growling can be heard. Dispatcher. Are you there? Aaron. I heard something. I think they're in the house. Dispatcher. You can stay quiet if you need to. I'm still on the line. Aaron. It sounds like... What? A muffled metallic sound can be heard, following by a scream and barking. Aaron. Oh my god. Caller screams and sounds to be running. A door slams. Aaron. Ginger, come here. Dispatcher. Aaron, are you alright? Can you tell me what's happening? A full minute passes with no response to the dispatcher's questions. Caller can be heard trying to calm her dog. Dispatcher. Aaron? Aaron. I'm in. Hello? Dispatcher. I'm here. Aaron. I'm in the downstairs bathroom. Where are the police? Dispatcher. They're 4 minutes out, Aaron. They're doing their best to get to you as fast as they can. Just try to remain calm. You're doing great. Aaron. It got inside the fucking vent. God! Dispatcher. Aaron, did you say the person was inside your vents? Can you clarify what you mean? Aaron. Like, the fucking vent the heat comes out of. I heard something moving in there, and I bent down to flip open the vent, and I saw that white face staring out. Dispatcher. How big are your air vents, Aaron? Aaron. The standard size, I don't know, 6 inches or so? Not big enough for a fucking person to crawl through, but they did. They did. Dispatcher. Okay, just take deep breaths. Officers are less than 2 minutes out. Aaron. Oh my god, why is it taking so long? Dispatcher. Just keep the door locked and... Aaron. I think... Aaron. I hear it moving around in the vents. Dispatcher. It's okay to remain quiet. I'm here. Do you have anything you can use as a weapon? Aaron. I have the towel bar. Aaron. Oh my god, it's poking its fingers through. A door slams, followed by screams and high-pitched laughter. Caller sounds to be running. Laughing grows louder, almost mechanical in nature. The call ends. Officers McQuarrie and Pape arrive on the scene approximately 56 seconds later. The front door was open prior to their arrival, and there were obvious signs of a struggle throughout the home. Officers called out to Miss Feller, but did not get a response. Officer Pape found the dog in the downstairs laundry room, staring into the air vent and whimpering. The dog had obvious cuts and scrapes around its snout and paws from attempting to enter the air vent. Traces of white makeup were found on most of the windows in the home, on the inside of the glass. After a thorough investigation, officers collected blood and hair samples inside 4 of the vents throughout the home, along with fingernails that were embedded in one of the grates. More traces of white paint were found inside all of the vents in the home. Hair samples matched the hair length and color of Miss Feller's. It is noted that all the vents in the home were measured at a 6 by 10, much too small for a person to move through or even fit inside. To date, Miss Feller is still missing, and there's a reward for any information leading to her whereabouts. The end.
The no eyelids got me.
Yeah, it's very
The
creepy.
Freaky imagery.
Do you think she got dragged into the vents?
I think so.
Yeah.
I assume the vents are not safe.
Gordon Freeman has lied to me.
Gordon Freeman, why you do this? That was really creepy. Like when you said the eyelids, I like got a burst of imagery in my brain that I didn't like. It's like, oh,
I think like the distorted running after her while laughing mechanically got me too.
yeah. Oh
I-
god.
I think the its fingers are poking out part got me, because up until
Yeah.
that point, it's like it's just staring. It's just being creepy. Maybe it's just a creepy ghost.
Yeah.
You know?
You know,
Like-
maybe a skinwalker or, you know, it could be
Yeah.
anything really.
Maybe
It's
it's
like
just a
a-
spooky ghost vibing in the pipes, you know? Cause a few spooks and leaves. Doesn't maybe suck you into the vents.
You didn't
like
even give her
whenever-
7 days like the Grudge. He just said, you know what, tonight's your night.
One day, couple hours actually.
Mm-hmm.
Tight schedule. Tight schedule.
He's got more vents.
Yeah. I remember in
He's
speaking
venting
of that, like
us.
in in Ju-on, like they did that weird walk, like where like their legs would go and they jerk their upper body. That's what I imagine in my brain. It's freaky.
Yeah. Oh, gotta remove those vents now too.
We don't need vents. We don't need windows. We barely need doors.
No
We need very
mirrors.
sturdy
th-
doors,
just
yeah.
Nothing.
No
Just
windows.
walls.
No
Just
windows.
walls are safe.
No pets. Gotta get rid of the dogs.
Just,
What else
just
we
put me
got?
in a very comfy white room. You know, nothing in
Yeah.
it. That's fine. That's all I need.
Oh yeah, with a nice jacket that fits really tight.
Nice jacket. Love those jackets. Love all the pillows.
Let's hold hands and go into solitary confinement together.
I love it. The quad confinement. Just 4 friends in an eternal fire, telling spooky stories.
I got one more.
All right,
Ready.
send
Ready,
us
ready.
out.
Woohoo.
Let's go.
Called It Was Just a Game by the Thought. Very interesting name.
It's a Hierothought, like Hierophant, but with thought.
Oh. You see, when you said it, it sounded so much better than when I attempted to. whatever Cafe just said. I played the game for ages. It was an app similar to Scrabble that paired you with a random opponent. Better than scrolling mindlessly, right? Doom scrolling, getting real bad. This opponent stood out to me, though. They played their turn immediately, every time, and they were extremely bad at it. The game notified you if your opponent's word was rejected, and if it was actually the name of some Lovecraftian shit the app didn't know, you could contest the rejection. But I didn't think Underground was a word in any language. As an avid player, even I didn't play as obsessively as this person. Ashley Pepper? According to her username, she lost almost every game and immediately would request a new one. Out of sheer curiosity, I looked at her profile. It was pretty bare bones, but it listed your top scores and the number of active games you had going. Ashley Pepper had dozens of games going, all at the same time, yet her top score was never higher than 200. Every time Ashley Pepper requested a new game, I considered rejecting it, knowing it wouldn't be a challenge really at all. But the whole thing was just so goddamn weird, and sometimes I got a laugh out of the nonsensical words she types. It became an inside joke with my friends. If someone got tongue-tied, we'd ask, "Did you learn that word from Ashley Pepper?" When she did score points, they were usually from building on words I'd already played. For example, I'd put down base, and she'd turn it into basement. I'd play hand, and she'd turn it into handcuff. You get the idea. But it was usually a key smash. Couldn't them in the like playing online Scrabble with an epileptic toddler. I'd been playing with Ashley Pepper for years, and then one day, she just stopped. It was strange, and I was a little bummed to lose an entertaining part of my daily routine. Otherwise, I didn't think much of it. It was just a game. A few days after Ashley Pepper went dark, I got a text from my buddy Kyle. Just the word, dude, followed by a video link. Breaking news, missing teenager found dead in a basement. 16-year-old Ashley Pepperday was reported missing 3 years ago. Pepperday, 13 at the time, left for school but never boarded the bus. Authorities identified her abductor as 56-year-old Jonathan Burke, a shut-in whose 5 neighbors described him as reclusive and weird. Her remains were found handcuffed to a bed frame in Burke's basement, showing signs of prolonged torture, starvation, and dehydration. For years before her death, Pepperday lived with only a waste bucket, a thin blanket, and an out-of-date iPhone, missing a SIM card. Burke had blocked popular social media sites such as Facebook and Twitter. It appears Pepperday used the device primarily to play games during her captivity. Authorities have taken Burke into custody. His hearing is scheduled for the 25th of August. I opened the app to my last game with Ashley Pepper and looked over the nonsense words. Underground, kidnapped, torture. Help me.
Oh, that's horrifying.
Damn.
Ugh. That gave me chills.
Mm-hmm.
Help me, please!
Thank you, May.
Nobody asked where the mods are. But God, that's chilling.
Mm-hmm. Gotta pay attention to those nonsense
son.
words. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Ooh, that was a good one.
good one to end on.
It was.
Thank you, May.
Thank you for hosting this beautiful, wonderful, blazing fire that all of our emotes fall into.
Yes.
It's like the fire from Hades Fortnite.
Hopefully, once again, our tales of terror have sated the ghosts so that they may leave us for one more year.
It's true.
Make sure that your heartbeat is your own on your way home, folks.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not your heartbeat, see a doctor. So he can give you the no more ghost pill.
Double check those windows.
I'd rather not, actually. I'm never looking in a window ever again, actually.
And they'll come in.
Don't answer your door if you don't see anybody on your doorbell.
True, true. All wise words.
Avoid everyone and everything.
Yeah. Don't. If you see a rock type Pokemon, that might be a ghost.
Possibly.
Thanks for having us, Aiden. It was a blast.
It was.
Yeah,
It was
thank
fun.
you.
Appreciate
It was fun
y'all
having
for
you here this year.
coming around the fire. And yeah, and we thank you for joining us.
Of course, I'm excited. I finally got to join one of these. It was super fun.
Yeah.
Here's the
s-
next year.
Here's the next year.
Here's to next year. It's gonna be harder to get you for next year, though.
I might not be able to do this time next year. But if
Exactly.
you wanted to have like a, we'll sort something out. We got a whole year to talk about it. It's fine.
That's true. That's true.
Y'all take care. Happy Halloween!
Happy
Happy
Halloween.
Halloween.
Bye.
Thank you, friends. Fare thee
Thank
well.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of our campfire tales. The stories hopefully served as maybe a cautionary example of what not to do as we approach that All Hallows Eve, where the barrier between our world and the next is so thin, so very thin. Once again, big shout out to my lovely guests, for joining me, Cafe Envy, May. Love you. Appreciate you for being here. And hope to see you again next year for another session of spooky tales. I think tonight, like every night that we do one of these, we're just going to go off on our separate ways into the night. Let these stories sink in and fester. Hopefully not too badly. But thank you everyone else out there in the void for listening. I very much appreciate you for being here. We'll be seeing you again, hopefully soon. But until then, ciao for now.